going to call the meeting to order. If you may take a moment. We have several important items on our agenda today, and what we want to do is several items on the Advanced Transportation District agenda are also on the regular VIA Metropolitan Transit Authority agenda. So we're going to go through that one real quick, the ATD agenda, and then move over to the VIA Metropolitan Transit Authority agenda. So with that, let's just take a moment though, catch our breath and pause and reflect on the business we're going to conduct today. Thank you. Now, if you don't mind, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, what I'd like to do is we'll postpone the announcements from the CEO and from the chair till the next meeting, and let's just do quickly the consent agenda on the agenda. Have you all had a chance to review the minutes and the financial report for the Advanced Transportation District? The chair will entertain a motion for approval. So moved. We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, and it's my understanding the rest of the items on the agenda are also on the regular VIA agenda, including the legal briefings be part of that. So with that then, we're going to adjourn this meeting and call to order the VIA Metropolitan Transit Authority Board meeting for tonight. And we have already done our momentary reflection and Pledge of Allegiance. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you for any special announcements. I know we've got some special ones.
Yes, we do. The first thing we'd like to do is do a recognition of two former VIA trustees, and I'll do them individually, and I'll start with Gerald Lee. And when we present the plaque, I'll ask the entire board to join us for a picture. And what I just say, Gerald, could you come? Where's Gerald? There he is.
Yeah, he's hiding.
So Gerald served the board with great vigor. He also served on the MPO board and defended our honor. And I think, though, most specifically, I can't speak for you, but I think I would say that you would say that perhaps your highest calling as a board member was the service you provided on our Accessible Service Task Force. Because I knew your heart was always there. You were always certain to make sure that you were at the meeting and that we took care of the agenda and that we listened to our customers. And so that's a great service you provided specifically to that part of our customer base. And I'd like to present you a plaque and have the board members join us up front for a picture.
Thank you so much.
For your dedicated service to the citizens of Bexar County as a member of the Board of Trustees from January 2009 to July of 2014. Thank you so much, sir.
Don't go away, Gerald. I want to see if any of the trustees would like to make any comments and see if you have any advice to offer us on your way out. Any thoughts or comments? I know I heard one little comment over here earlier, but well, we won't go over that one.
Do I get time to respond? Do I get a rebuttal?
You have full opportunity to respond.
Actually, I just want to say a few words. I really, really want to thank this board and this staff for the amazing work that they've done. If I could have played just a small role in it, I'm extremely proud. I'm proud to have served on this board, and I truly believe in my heart of hearts that the best for VIA lies ahead. This is great leadership. Thank you all so much.
Well, thank you. And don't go away. because I do want to say and echo what Jeff had said. You know, when I became chairman, I met with each of the trustees to find out what their interests were and what they wanted to, what committee they wanted to serve on. And Gerald said, you know, you can do this to me, you can do that to me, just do me one favor, don't take me off of the Disability Access Committee. And I know that was a very special place for him, very important. And I think what was very helpful to me in this 6 or 7 month transition we've been going through is your insights, your knowledge and familiarity with the community and different components of the community, and the advice that you're able to provide was very beneficial. We're going to miss that. But congratulations, though. I know you've got a busy agenda coming up, and I know you'll do well.
Thank you.
So congratulations.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Jeff, you ready to do the other one? Uh-oh.
How about this? Yeah, there we go. All right, Mr. Miller, would you please come forward? Lou Miller. So let me tell you, Lou is a great catalyst. He's been catalytic through my entire time here, up to essentially his last minute on the board. But I will say that one of the projects we're working on now, which is truly transformational, and that Lou really took a leadership position in, is working with Fort Sam to get New Braunfels open through there. Be a great achievement for all of us, and it was at your leadership. The other thing is, I'll tell you, is that Lou is a brother of mine at Rotary, and he got me involved in their youth exchange program, but then he also himself got involved. His daughter is now in Belgium, right? And so, yeah, fantastic. I'm really happy for you. Although now you're probably missing her as well. So Lou's very active throughout the community. It's been a great honor, and it's great to have a friend in the mayor's office. So Lou, thank you so much for your service. It's a picture of a bus, right?
We need to make it clear, this is from January 2009 to July of 2014.
Yes.
This is 5 years. You got everybody in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Thank you.
But let me just say, before we ask you to comment, let me just say how much I've admired your tenacity. I mean, you have just been, as when I was in the Army, they used to say, a duck on a June bug on things like the Fort Sam Houston opening of New Braunfels. And what that's going to do for us in the future, making that connection really from South Loop 410, the Brook City base, all the way to North Loop 410 will be a fantastic opportunity and give that gateway project area the way it used to be prior to 2001 and the 9/11 situation. But beyond that, your knowledge and of the community and your familiarity, your willingness to participate in a number of activities, your presence was always very important. And I don't know how many times we'd be at functions and people always identified you as a representative of VIA and always are ably representing us and very important to us in our community, particularly in the times when we're trying to communicate our master planning process and all that. And having been there through that whole process from 2009 to today, you're very familiar with it. I have to say, in a recent meeting, I wasn't sure if Lou was still with us or if he was at the city, because he was defending VIA and did a very good job of it there in a meeting at City Hall. So we appreciate it, and he told me we'll always have a friend in him, and I know that he's got to live up to that. So thank you. Any other trustees like to say something?
Yeah, and before I say something about Lou, I do want. No, I'll be careful. I've learned enough to be careful with you. I was just going to say about Gerald first, that serving with Gerald was a challenge. He was sometimes he made my service harder because I sat next to him, and so he would normally start telling me stuff that I really wanted to pay attention to while the meeting was going on, and it made it very hard to choose. Do I listen to Gerald, who's telling me the story that I need to know, or do I pay attention to the board meeting. So I appreciated his insights and his help to me as a new board member. And the same goes to you, Lou. Another word that I would use to describe you is fearless. Your courage to take on issues when you probably know that the positions you take are not going to be welcome. That's the kind of courage that was very inspiring to me. And I will miss you, having you on this board for that reason, because I think you were such a fearless advocate for us. And I'm glad that you are hopefully going to continue to be a fearless advocate for what we do in the mayor's office. And I just want to thank you personally for your
Thank you,
service
Doug.
here.
Thank you.
Actually, Lou, you know, being a newcomer to the board, you're the first person that reached out from the board to me. And, you know, being a person that is my first appointment to a public office, you made the transition seamless. And that's something that you did not have to do. You took a personal interest in me. So for that, I truly, truly appreciate it and thank you. You become more of an uncle to me, just to say that. But even on our trips to Washington and things of that, you made me look at things a different way. So I'm inspired to do more in public service because of your effort with me. And the mayor does have a very capable person in her office now.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mark.
Lou.
Thank you.
Well, I thought it was me he was reaching out to. Because I too got a phone call as soon as I was appointed. And when you heard it from his lips, you knew it was the gospel. That it was the way things were, and sometimes what you hear and what it is, it could be two separate things. And I would always look over there to find out the real story. And I will miss that, but I'm glad that there's someone in the mayor's office who will tell the mayor the real story.
Right. And I think the chairman knows that's a tough thing to do, is trying to make sure the mayor hears the real story.
That's right. Steve, you want to add something?
I feel personal loss, both Gerald and Lou. You both have been such tremendous board members, and I think what's been remarkable and much to your credit is that both of you have the mission and purpose of VIA firmly in your heart and the welfare of this community, and I think you've shown that in a daily way. And I'm so pleased that you're going to be in a position at the city and continue that role, and also the friendship with VIA. Look forward to continue to work with you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Okay. Lou, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the accolades and the comments, but we had a lot of accomplishments here at VIA, and we appreciate the staff. We appreciate the board that we worked with because they saw the vision that we were trying to visualize, and they took and ran with it. Well, they just took the direction that needed to take, and it began to happen. But before I say that to you, I would like to share with you that this past Sunday, we got an opportunity to visit with Dr. Gambetta. Dr. Gambetta is having outpatient treatment at MD Anderson there in Houston. We got a chance to visit with him and his family in his condo, a beautiful view of the skyline. And we kept him laughing because we just talked about politics, and anybody that knows Dr. Gambetta knows that if we talk about politics, it makes him feel better. The only regret is I wasn't able to hear him whisper, because in this particular case, he had to write everything down. So he had to write really quick, if you could imagine, but it was a good experience. But to everybody, to the board, to the staff, to the accomplishments that we did as an organization and as a group, I want to thank you for the experience and leave with you again the message, which is you have a friend in the mayor's office. Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen, and we're going to miss you all as we move forward. And with that, we're going to
I
continue.
have two others.
Okay, I was gonna
Okay,
say, we're going to
sorry.
continue with additional announcements.
They're
from our
relatively
CEO.
brief. I just wanted to share with you an email that we received from the Downtown Operations Division regarding shelters that we placed as part of, I think, the Travis Park project. Shelters are much needed improvements, simple and clean look. I've received only positive feedback. Your staff did a good job in design and construction. So this is a project that we just completed, And as a result of just completing it, the project manager was allowed yesterday to give birth to her son, Nicholas. So Abigail can't be here today because she chose the chairman's birthday to have a baby. But next month, we'll bring her back so she gets proper recognition, because she does a great job.
And it was a national holiday yesterday, too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Labor Day, yeah. So that's why
Perfect
they call it
timing.
Labor Day.
Perfect timing. Abigail is really good on schedules. And lastly, I'd like all the folks from City Year San Antonio stand up. We have a number of folks here today. We have, on the consent agenda, the agreement. First of all, City Year San Antonio is a group of young people, as you can see, and they're here to mentor, tutor, and serve as role models in area schools. Their goal is to help students succeed in their schoolwork so they can eventually graduate, which is a great purpose that you serve. So we're really glad that you're here. We're glad that we can partner with y'all for transportation, and that you are also going to be ambassadors for VIA, because you're a good-looking group of ambassadors. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your service. And I think there'll be a couple people. A couple of people speak later from their organization to the board. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes my remarks.
Great, well, thank you very much. With that, and I believe we have some folks from City here scheduled to speak on the Citizens to be Heard section.
Yes, we do.
We'll go now to Citizens to be Heard.
Mr. Chairman, we have 6 citizens to be heard tonight, and the first citizen is Damon Mason.
Chairman Senior, President Arndt, via trustees, many salutations. It is I, Dane Mason. As you've seen for yourselves, I'm not shy about pointing out the flaws of via Metropolitan Transit, along with insisting upon prompt redress and even offering the vector by which that can be done. Having just said that, I also have the humility to give the devil his due. What do you mean by this, I ask? I'm referring to the press conference Chairman Senior held on the 1st of August 2014, when he announced the decision to defer the modern streetcar initiative in the Central Business District. Even with the coercive element at play, that was a very wise decision you made. I cannot really complain that to any great extent. That said, Chairman Bersinga's decision would have a lot more impact if he had also made it clear that VIA will not undertake any more research for interurban rail transit initiatives, neither light rail nor streetcars, will focus upon heeding the counsel that has been given from the customers. The transit police proactively run the entire transit service network. The mainline urban transit service expedites the transit patient are less likely to be attacked by a criminal, starting with all red frequent service routes. No frigid mainline operates if it can be avoided. Please, if I were not better acquainted with you, I would think that VIA is not a very professional company. Along those lines, please encourage employees to take time for themselves, especially mainline transit officers, as a few of them are getting a bit epic. Allow the passengers proper legal certification to carry guns for self-defense. Learn some humility. You're just as foul a person as I am or anyone on this planet. Do not behave toward thick wallet as an accurate measure of competence or morality or ethical character. There's no correlation between the two. Abolish the moral hazard. Stop passing the buck. Those outside consultants did not come to you on their own. You summoned them and you hired them. More to the point, you do not have to act upon the counsel from that expensive research, especially when the consultant firm is from outside the state and thus does not have to deal with the aftermath of its counsel. Along the same lines, make it clear to the consultant firm that its sole function is to define the required data and to interpret it upon its collection from the office staff you already have on your payrolls. If additional manpower is needed to gather this data, put out a call for volunteers from the public to gather the necessary data for the consultant firm to interpret. Do not allow the consultant firm to undertake any of this research without there being volunteers from the community. Considering that your security centers and transit fleet both had advantage of greater numbers and that they're packing heat, why would they be so concerned that I have a traffic mug full of ice water? No matter what perspective of this you take, the security centers, the transit police, security checkpoint outside the boardroom, the transit agency itself, I have my own hypothesis of why some serious orange and yellow flags going up here. Finally, no more of these clumsy meetings. I have not forgotten the board meeting in which you boorishly hashed out the definition of Texas Spur 421 in front of the public and ultimately had to import the assistance of the Texas Transportation Department. Not only did VIA waste time of the public that evening, it also made it quite clear that VIA has so little esteem for the San Antonio populace without recklessly squanders public funds, such things as Texas Loop 304 BRT, which was supposed to be out of mixed road traffic but ended up as an overpriced curb-running transit route. I want to know how that happened in detail.
Rashim Creech.
Hi, my name is Rashim Creech, and I serve at Wheatley Middle School. I would like to thank VIA for the bus passes that they provided us with our goal to fulfill tutoring around San Antonio. All my interactions with VIA bus drivers have been always excellent and positive.
I especially want to thank the driver of the 71822 bus, who has so much positive energy every morning. Whether it's training new drivers or driving himself, positive energy helps me start my day on the right foot. I want to give him big thanks for loving what he does and passing on the good morning energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashim.
Richard Reese.
Hello. I just want to say thank you first off. But my name is Richard Reese. I proudly serve at Roosevelt High School as a team leader. I would like to say thank you to VIA for allowing me to ride on the bus first off, but also with the bus drivers too. I remember my first time riding on the bus, I was extremely lost, not knowing where to get off at and what next bus to take. And every time that I asked a VIA bus driver, they always gave me the correct answer and led me the right direction. And I also would like to say thank you to the VIA bus drivers for always having a positive, we call it a positive can-do, meaning like a smile on your face and just saying, just greeting us each time that I get on a bus. Leaving with that, I just want to say thank you again. And I'm really grateful for VIA sponsoring and helping City Year.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for being here.
Ryan Dillon.
Hi, my name is Ryan Dillon, and I'm a team leader at Sam Houston High School. I just wanted to say thank you, VIA, for supporting me and my fellow City Year AmeriCorps members in our goals of making a positive impact with the students of San Antonio. Without the services of VIA, my ability to live independently in San Antonio would be seriously challenged. Because I can rely on VIA for transportation, I can work and actively engage with my community. Beyond the transportation your services provide me, I actually have an avenue to connect with many of my students who happen to ride the same bus route. This allows me to build stronger mentoring relationships and extend my impact in their lives beyond the confines of the typical school schedule. I know that without your support, I would not be nearly as connected with the San Antonio community. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Randy Bear.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the board about the upcoming projects within VIA, specifically the West-South Corridor BRT project. As some of you may know, I was opposed to the now defunct streetcar project. At the time, I felt it was being promoted at the wrong time in VIA's strategic plan, basing my evaluation on successful and failed streetcar projects across the nation. But that's behind us now, and VIA has wisely opted to focus those funds on projects designed to benefit a larger scope of riders in both the city and the county. One of those is designed to provide BRT along a west-south corridor running from the Medical Center Transit Center to the planned Brooks Transit Center. Not knowing all the details of the project, I found an estimate of the cost of the project in the Express News thanks to transportation reporter Viana Davila. Based on that estimate, it's expected to cost a whopping $62 million. Of course, that's still an estimate. The cost is for a mixed flow solution. It won't have dedicated lane, it won't include traffic signal priority technology, and it won't have off-board fare collection. Three key components of what makes a bus rapid transit rapid. According to a GAO report, mixed flow systems should be around $100,000 per mile on the high side. Looking up the road to Austin, which recently finished implementing a BRT project, their cost for two lines with over 70 stops was $47 million. While Austin's system is a mixed flow system, it doesn't include off-board fare purchases. It does have traffic signal priority technology. If you're doing the math on the side at this point, I think you can start to see some project cost flags that probably need to be reviewed. VIA does a great job at managing operational costs, keeping those costs 25% lower than Cap Metro. It's also managed to keep senior management numbers lean. But project costs seem to be a challenge to VIA. One of the things I loved about former Councilman Reed Williams is that regardless of whether he supported or opposed a project, he always asked the questions. So I have to ask the question why this project's costs are so high, and more importantly, why have none of the VIA board members at least raised a similar concern? Regardless of whether you support or oppose a project, at least dig into the details and ask the questions and ask them publicly. At least offer an air of transparency on how you spend your taxpayer dollars. And by the way, while I'm up here and I've got a little time, I thank you guys for providing bus passes for this bunch of great group of young people back there. I've seen these guys, the young men and women here, do City Year around the city. These people give up so much of their time to come out here and work in San Antonio, and thank you guys for offering the bus passes to them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Don Payne.
Thank you for this opportunity for allowing me to be heard. I've heard a lot of beautiful things, but let's be realistic. It's a lot that happens that the Board of Trustees are not familiar with. First of all, if you have transit police, you need an internal affairs department to follow up the complaints just like you do regular police officers. I say this because I had a bus driver take off with my bike and drove a whole route. I called via transit police department, and because I was so emotional, my voice came across as threatening, as they say, but the truth is I'm very adamant when I speak. When I speak, I try to make facts, but the truth was I didn't get nowhere. To make a long story short, I had to call 911 for that bus to be tracked down, and when I got my bike back, some of the parts that were missing, my chain was off the bike. So what I'm saying is this, sir, VIA is a very powerful entity. Most people, common people like me, to file complaints in courts, sovereign immunity will kill those complaints. So I'm here in front of you to tell you that, and I like to quote this, the Texas Constitution provides in pertinent part as follows: no person's property shall be taken, damaged, or destroyed for apply to public use without adequate compensation. I made 12 copies that I like to leave with each panel who I've researched the backgrounds of each and every one of you before you became who you are today. It was a lot of beautiful things said. I don't mean to come across as negative, but it is important that you do an investigation for the officers that were involved. To make a long story short, they told me I cannot get back on the bus once I got my bike back because the same bus driver was driving the bus. This frustrated me. I mentioned to them that I am under the Americans with Disability Act. I made so many complaints. I came down so many times. You don't even have a person that comes down to give you the FTA forms. I think these things need to be set in place because life is hard for some of us. It ain't beautiful for all those sitting behind the desk. And so I'm just here because it would mean so much to me if you reviewed these 12 copies that I made so that you can reprimand those that made those bad decisions. And for that very reason, I'm here, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for that feedback.
Patrick DeOr.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Dior. I'm here on behalf of Bella on the River and our downtown partners, The Palm and Bohannon's Restaurant, the Paseo del Rio Association, and the downtown business community, and concerning our request to extend the Red Route trolley line to access the Tobin Center, the Central Library, and the Southwest School of Art. I'd like to thank Eddie Cruz for his help in submitting the official request and his outstanding performance for the VIA Business Development Department. Our simple plan would extend the Red Route trolley line up Navarro from Houston Street and then back down St. Mary's, rejoining the original Houston track, adding only a small amount of time to the existing route. This would allow our downtown diners and shoppers convenient access to the Tobin Center and the Central Library throughout the day and particularly in the evening. This expansion will also increase access to city parking during the Tobin Center's parking garage construction and beyond. And finally, and most importantly, this will definitely increase ridership of the trolley line, as it will be the best option for all Tobin patrons who wish to dine before and after performances. All of our business partners downtown will actively encourage the trolley use and encourage our guests to use trolley lines while going to the library, School of Art, Club Girard, or the Tobin Center. I think that this will be a win for VIA, a win for the Tobin, its patrons, and all of the downtown Riverwalk businesses. And I thank you so much for your time and your consideration. We look forward to hearing more from the board. Thank you again.
Thank you. You want to say anything on that?
There are no more citizens to be heard.
Thank you very much. Okay, we always value the feedback we get from our citizens, and I know the staff keeps track of all this and prepares responses to some of these questions that are raised, and you'll be able to follow up on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. With that, then, we move to the next item on our agenda, agenda item number 5, which is a consent agenda. And I ask, first of all, if anybody of the trustees would like any of the items pulled for individual presentation. Hearing none, do we have a motion for approval? We have a motion and a second to approve. Anything again, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Very good. Then that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the nominating committee report and the Board of Trustees. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ponick, who is the chair of our nominating committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Marn, Ms. Cedillo, and I served as the nominating committee, and we had a very brief but productive committee meeting. We had 2 nominees. I want to thank Steve Allison and Mark Harrison for offering their names in nomination. I think you were, obviously, we all thought that you were both fine nominees. But of course, we had to come up with a recommendation, so we focused in on a couple of things, a couple of factors. One is that we may be moving as a board to board-wide meetings as opposed to so many committee meetings, and our executive committee meeting on which Steve Allison sits. So we wanted to maintain some continuity in terms of experience and knowledge with regard to the issues that we've been dealing with under the current structure. We also wanted to have a representative from one of the appointing authorities that was not previously represented more recently on our executive committee team, on our officers. We've had city representatives, but we did not have anyone from the suburban cities, so we thought that that would be wise to do. But I also want to add that Mark, upon hearing that Steve had been nominated or was putting his name in nomination for the secretary, was very noble and generous of spirit to say that he thought that Steve should be considered before himself. So I wanted to point that out because I thought Mark was very, very generous again in doing that. So it was our committee's decision to recommend Steve Allison to the board that he be named as secretary on our executive officers. So
Thank
I
you
guess,
for that report.
do I need to place that in nomination, I guess? So I, on behalf of the committee, I would nominate Steve Allison as secretary.
Is there a second to that nomination? Okay. So we have a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations for the members of the board, on the floor? Hearing none, and Mark, we appreciate your interest, and I also heard what you said when you found out that Steve was, and you just seconded the motion now to support Steve's nomination, so we appreciate your support of that as well. Hearing no other nominations, we have a nomination of Mr. Steve Allison to be the secretary of the board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
It's a dark and lonely job. Now you
Short.
You have to earn your money now. That was a little joke. Next, we want to, I guess we've had the report and we had the election, so then go to item number 7, which is a discussion of the consideration of consolidation of some of our committee meetings. And I'm going to kick it off and then turn it over to Jeff, from some of his perspectives, and I know he's going to have Bonnie give us some feedback. But this is just something that I asked Jeff to take a look at in the context of, I forget how many committees we have, but we have several committees. I know, having attended a number of the committee meetings, sometimes some board members hear the same presentation 2 or 3 times. Other board members don't get a chance to hear the presentation at all. As an example, today we had in our consent agenda a report on the benefits package for our employees and the status of what we're doing. We're going out to getting different proposals on how to handle that in the future and different alternatives. And the members of the Compensation and Pension Committee had a chance to hear that report. And the board as a whole will get the feedback once the proposals come in and everything. But the whole board has not heard all of those different alternatives and different recommendations or different approaches that are being pursued as we look forward how we go forward with the with the benefits package. And so that's an example, and also an update on the pension report, and how much of our pension plan has been funded and how we split. I got a chance to read it because I'm trying to learn a lot of this stuff as a new member of the board, and the 57% funded status of the first portion of our pension plan that's going to grow over a period of like 20 years to about 90% again, but was at 90% about 10 years ago. And with the demise of the 2008 in the market, created all sorts of challenges. But all that was in a consent agenda, and now everybody's had a chance to see that. And God knows we don't get a chance to hear enough from Steve on how we're doing in terms of our financials. And that's something, again, that's very important, I think, that the whole board needs to hear. And so I suggested to Jeff that maybe there are certain things like that that we all need to be aware of. At the same time, we have other projects, for example, the Ellis Alley investment that might be covered under the Project and Planning Development Committee. It may be covered under the Real Estate Committee. It may be covered in different committee processes. And again, some folks are going to hear that presentation 2 or 3 times. I think what it also would do was help the staff out a little bit, because they're finding that they're run from meeting to meeting to meeting. I think next Tuesday, for example, we've got 3 committee meetings scheduled, something like that. And so they go virtually all day long, and so this gives them a chance to focus on their work. So what I was suggesting is maybe looking at doing a one board meeting, which would be an informal work session, where we'd all get briefings on the updates and things like the financial information, or things like where we're going forward with our projects, the status of that, or the benefits package, or whatever. And then the regular meeting where we actually take action on some of these. Kind of similar to the model at City Hall, with the B session and the A session that's reviewed that way. And so that was just a suggestion. I know Jeff and his team have taken a look at that, and they had some suggestions on how we might be able to do that. And we wanted to see what you all thought about it and bounce it off for you all. And with that, I'll turn it over to
I'll
Jeff.
just respond to that. I think there's real value to all the board members hearing the information across the board. And on the other hand, in an effort to do that and make multiple committee presentations, some board members, as the chairman said, end up hearing it 2 or 3 times. And as much as I love Clay Smith, the 3rd time around, it's not as fun as the first time. So it would make it a lot more efficient that way. It would make it a lot simpler from the board's perspective of having multiple meetings over the course of the month and keeping track of that. It would probably add years to Deborah's life, which is not what we're all here about, but she really struggles to schedule these meetings, as you know, very earnestly, to try and make sure that everybody's included and treated fairly. What I did say is there were 2 things. One is that if there are major topics that we would expect to take large chunks of time, that we would still workshop those instead of having an agenda that would have
budget or something.
Yeah, like the budget, correct. And second of all, that from the staff presentation perspective, that we would try to design the presentations to get more to the basic facts and recommendations, with the material being provided to the board in advance, so that the board could ask us questions about the detail, but we wouldn't walk you through every piece of the detail. And I think one board member referred to reading PowerPoints, which is an inappropriate way to do a presentation anyhow. So we'll try and streamline the presentations, but still provide all the detail and encourage any of those kinds of questions that would come up from the detail. But I think it's worth giving it a try. That's what I think.
Great, thanks.
And I asked Bonnie to kind of look at bylaws, et cetera,
Right.
just to make sure that.
The legal aspects of
So,
it.
yeah, this is, the lead-in has really covered most of what needs to be covered. Statutorily, we're required to have 1 meeting per month. The other committee meetings and other meetings that we have placed on top of that have been self-imposed. And so we will look back. There are some tweaks that we would need to do that we've added to the bylaws in terms of committees, but we can go through this period and have the board, if they so desire, run through a course of having a meeting the week prior. That's a full session where we run through everything for a work session, and then have a meeting for action on the 4th Tuesday, as we have been doing historically. And that is sort of the proposed plan. If you would give us authorization to do that, then we will look at everything necessary to put it into place formally if after a period of that, the board is satisfied with that action and likes the way it's proceeding.
We are recommending that 2 committees maintain their operation.
Yes.
And that is the audit committee because of its independent function, and the accessible service committee because of their interface with that specific community. So we would still preserve those 2 committees independently. That's our recommendation.
Okay, do we have any questions? Yes, Bobby.
Just a couple of questions, and really, I've asked them and they've been answered already, but I just think they're worthwhile to mentioning. Other than the pension function, or I'm sorry, the audit function, or this new structure, we're not going to undermine any statutory or bylaw duties under this function at all? And if so, we would just have a necessary meeting, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
if that were the case. And pension does have some items that it needs to look at and is required to look at, but it is not precluded from doing that at the work session and then moving on to the full meeting. And if there were additional issues that need to be addressed, we would pull them out and workshop them or do whatever is necessary to meet any additional requirements.
Fair enough, just so long as we're attuned and we pay attention to that requirement if necessary. Procedurally speaking, 2 questions or comments, however you choose. Procedurally speaking, I assume that it would be agendized, just like any other committee meeting, opportunity for citizens to come and talk and convene and look at the documents and give their input. Fair? Is that accurate?
That would be at the pleasure of the board,
I
yes,
think the
but it could be.
citizens to be heard portion would be part of the official meeting.
Okay.
This would be a work session,
But certainly an open meeting.
but yes,
Yes.
obviously. open
Certainly
meeting.
Yes, it would be a
agendized,
open
posted
agendized
72
meeting.
hours beforehand.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Just like the committee meetings
Just-
are too.
Yeah, just like committee
Okay.
meetings are today.
So everybody would have the opportunity to see whatever it is we're talking about, fully public and open and
Absolutely.
accessible.
There was never a question or issue about
Okay.
whether or not it would be open and agendized and posted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act.
I did not think so, but just wanted to confirm. And then my last question is more of maybe Jeff, this is a question for you on a process, just so I understand what the proposal is. We're going to put all, except for the 2 committees you mentioned, put all those standing committees into one monthly meeting. And are you going to monitor those agendas? Because I certainly think I'm up for trying. But I certainly don't think it would be wise to have a meeting that starts at 9 and ends at 9. You know, if we're talking about putting every single committee into one day, that's fine. But are we going to hear highline items? Are we going to hear, and no disrespect to the city here, folks, that's a great community effort, and we should be participating in things like that. But I don't think the city year item should be on this agenda that we're talking about. And so I'm just curious on what gets identified for this briefing meeting, if you will, and what doesn't.
And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that there is an answer, but I'm going to jump in here with that comment, Bobby, because I think that's sort of the issue that we have to struggle with is how much time do we want to spend on these meetings. I know that when I came onto the board, it seemed like the meetings would go fairly fast. We have a 2-hour meeting, and it was like trying to slow down a bus and say, okay, I have a question about that issue. So I would not want to lose the ability for us to drill down on some important things that, maybe aren't, not everything will be equally important. So I don't want us to lose that. I'm just putting that into the stew that we're making now. I don't know how you solve that issue. I do like the idea that we could still workshop some issues, because I think that was one of the things that we improved upon over the last couple of years, is being able to look at particular issues. I want us to preserve that option outside of this process. I too was concerned about whether we were going to have long meetings, but I also don't want to, as I said before, I remember, Bobby, when we were working with the IGR committee meeting in the old format, small committee meeting, we could actually get into what do we want our legislative agenda to be, and have the lobbyists there to give their input, and that was valuable. And I want to sort of recapture some of that opportunity in going forward with those kinds of issues. So while I don't want us to have the 9 to 9 meeting, I also do want us to keep from just turning it into skimming the surface type meetings where we're kind of we're going past issues so quickly. So I want to give that input as well.
I think part of that is a challenge to staff, in that if we're going to streamline the meetings, that our information to you, as Jeff mentioned, would be and need to be tighter and as informative as it possibly can be, so you're getting good and solid and tight information. The goal is not to reduce the data that you have or to minimize the question opportunity, so that you can have as much information that you need so that you all can make an informed decision. So some of the burden falls back on staff, that we do as good a job and a better job than we have been doing, although we have been doing a great job, but an even better job to, that was a smile, to make sure that you get really quality information to make your decisions.
And I think some of it would be, a judgment on the staff's part about what needs to be discussed in a workshop type of discussion versus what can just go straight to take action on.
Right, right.
For example, today's agenda, the environmental sustainability policy could probably go straight to take action on. On the other hand, the consideration of amendments to working conditions, that needs to be worked on. What to do with the text dot 92 million, that needs to be discussed in a workshop type of environment. But some things can go straight to action, their agenda.
And some
We're
can be
gonna have
put.
to work,
Right.
we'd have to work our way through that.
And some could be put on a summary agenda for that meeting as well, so that topics like the city year agreement would be on a summary agenda. You could read the agenda item. If there was a board member that had a question about that item, they'd pull it and we'd discuss it. Otherwise, it would go through. I typically am conservative on the summary agenda, try to keep what I would call fairly routine, like a low bid where the low bidder got the job and there was nothing exceptional about the process, would go on a summary agenda. There still might be some
And
reason why
summary
you'd
agenda,
want
you
to
mean
pull
consent
it.
agenda.
A consent agenda, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Old terminology, yeah.
No, and that's fair, and I guess one last comment I'll make and I'll stop, is when we go to this type of format, I would just be mindful of the fact that items that don't, like today, everything on the consent agenda has been through some committee. A gentleman made a comment earlier about not doing homework or looking behind the details. I understand his perception, and that's what you see on the outside, but I know everybody has seen most of these things in the consent agenda at least once, sometimes twice, sometimes three times. And so when we approve something on consent, it doesn't mean we're not looking at it. It means we've looked at it 3 or 4 or 5 times, and all of us have read the backup material. So we're fairly comfortable with approving these items. But when we move to this format, and I'll remind you, Mr. Chairman, at the city, it's taken various formats where you only hear certain things on a B session, where you have a consent agenda with nothing on it, to where you hear every item, to where you have a consent agenda with everything on it.
Right.
And so I think it will be a learning curve, for
It will be a learning
staff and for us as board members to figure out what we pull, with no ill intentions to you, Jeff, or your staff, but it's to truly find out, to do our diligence that we're required to do. And so I'm a willing participant. I'll vote to support the item in the process, and if you need a motion, I'll make a motion to approve it. But I would ask that you bear with me, because I do think it'll be a learning process.
Yeah.
I have some questions about, just a question about when do we see the meeting starting? Do we see it starting earlier to give us more time should it become necessary, in the, what we call the B session type meeting? I wonder if we set an unreasonable expectation to start at 5 o'clock, expecting to get through things, in 2 or 3 hours.
Well, this session could be held during the day as committee meetings are done.
Okay.
And so we could do a morning meeting, for example.
Okay, good.
I think we could want to get a survey from you all, see what works for you all. I think the challenge we've had recently is with the board now being reduced to 9 members until we get back to 11. Just getting quorums for committee meetings has been a challenge, and Deborah will tell you that, because everybody's got different schedules. Sure. And then we had, recently we also had Dr. Gambetta's illness and all that, and suddenly became even more of a challenge. And so we've had to go through and reschedule some of the committee meetings anyway, which means that, or fewer board members get a chance to see some of these things and explore in detail. and others may want to explore in detail, but are reluctant to pull it off the consent agenda. And for example, I told Jeff earlier, you know, I read all this stuff on the benefits package and everything else, and all the financial reports and everything else. I was tempted, you know, after going over this agenda last night, to say, oh, I'll just pull it tomorrow and hear the presentation. But I'll take everybody's time. Several folks who already heard the presentation. And so I would feel guilty, you know, doing that. Sometimes what I do is I get individual briefings. But again, that takes more time, and the staff's time, and our time as well. So I think it's something worth trying, but really wanted to get your all's feedback. If we're not going to move forward with something like this, then we need to have a recommitment to be sure that we, on the committees we're assigned to, that we show up, you know, for the meetings, so we can have that action taken. So I think that's important.
Well, and without defeating the purpose of this proposal, it still would not preclude maybe a meatier or heavier issue being sent to a study group to
An ad
report
hoc,
back.
yeah, exactly. We do an ad hoc committee, yeah. Absolutely.
Correct.
No, if at the meeting, any issue that was there, the board wanted to pull and call for another meeting, you know, staff would certainly accommodate that.
Yeah.
Right, or assign it to a group.
Or to a smaller group.
Yes,
Sure,
correct.
Then
to a smaller
report
group.
back in this
Right.
B session or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts or observations? Well, do y'all want to give direction to staff to move forward with this, or do you want to think about it some more, and we'll bring it up again at our next meeting, or?
There's a motion on the floor. Okay.
I'm not sure why.
That's okay.
I'll
say we
second
studied
that.
some more.
Yeah, you studied some more, you want
I
us to?
studied some more, maybe. I mean, if we can pull it, something that's a large item, and we're not gonna deal with large items all the time.
No.
So it's something that's functional enough. I'm willing to do the new session that way.
I think we should do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason why the audit committee was excluded from
It's a sole function.
just the sole function.
That's a report back to us.
How about if we transition for a month and see how it works? And come back and reconsider it in October. Does that make sense to y'all? Jeff, what do you think about that?
We can, when we come to the board in September, at the September meeting, we could lay out kind of what it would look like to move into it in October.
And then do that transition in October.
Correct.
And meanwhile, if there are other concerns that can be addressed, and maybe you all can address some of the issues that were raised here tonight, and help us work through that. So continue to work on it and bring it forward back at our meeting in
October.
September, our regular meeting in September.
We'll lay it out.
Clear structure and all that.
Good point.
Okay?
Okay, good. Thank you. So I think we'll give you all direction to move forward in that way. Thank you very much, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Then let's move to a discussion of the amendments to the regular working conditions. And I believe Gary's going to make that presentation.
The purpose of this agenda item is to seek board approval of the regular working conditions for hourly employees. The amendments that are being proposed are being brought forward jointly by staff and the executive board of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 694. A little bit, or background, I should say, about the working conditions. Working conditions are a set of policies, procedures, and practices that we observe in the daily operation of VIA. They're developed jointly by management representatives and representatives of ATU 694, and then ultimately approved by the board for implementation. The employees that are covered by the working conditions are all full-time bus and paratransit operators, along with all hourly maintenance employees and storeroom employees. The latest working conditions period expired July 31st. Now, traditionally, the revisions to the working conditions are approved by the board late in the budget year and are typically made retroactive to the expiration of the previous period. And then a little bit about our discussions over the past 2 months. We've been working with the executive board of Local 694 to deal with a number of objectives related to the working conditions, including improvements in safety, attendance, and work processes. And then additionally, we really focused on trying to make the document easier to use. The document has been in use for decades, and a lot of the practices, procedures for which it was originally written have changed significantly. Some have gone away, some have been added, so it's very important that we keep this document updated and relative to our operations. Okay, I want to go through a quick summary of the amendments that are being proposed. We're looking at a 2-year effective period for the working conditions. And another general item that we discussed was a process to be utilized by hourly employees transferring to the streetcar mode. Related to safety, we established defined rest periods between shifts of duties for operators. We also implemented a road call procedure to ensure that our most qualified mechanics are utilized to retrieve buses that have failed in service. Under the previous edition of the working conditions, it was typically assumed that the low man on the totem pole would be the one responsible for retrieving these vehicles. And we understand that we've got a very diverse fleet now, and it's imperative that we send our top folks out to bring these buses back home. Other language clarity update, document organization issues. As I mentioned, we updated a lot of the language to reflect our current structure, practices, terminologies. A lot of the wording, as I mentioned, is left from 20s, 30s, 40s, and which needed updating. Obsolete language, language clarified in the context that a lot of these policies were developed at that time is unknown, because those particular people are long retired, and again, it's very important to bring it into real time. Another significant issue that we pursued was a reduction in the number of allowed unpaid absences. Efficiency items, as I mentioned, many procedures updated. Reduction in the number of annual signups for bus operators. We went from 4 down to 3. We established break times for fleet and facility employees, and this is while there is some efficiency to be gained with this particular clause implementation, another concern was safety. We want to make sure that everybody takes a break at the same time, so that we don't have somebody working off at one end of the shop and say something happened, an accident or particular. Our best safety mechanism is one person helping the other out. And so this way, nobody's working alone while everyone else is either taking lunch or on break or whatever. Another thing that we've implemented that we feel will do very well for us is the use of knowledge and skills-based testing for merit increases among our skilled employees. Traditionally, it's been up to the supervisors to recommend an employee for a merit increase, but the way our system is set up and based on seniority, a low seniority person could be bumped from one shift to another. And along with that, they change supervisors. So if it's their turn to be evaluated, they could be working under that particular supervisor a couple of weeks. So we feel that using the skills-based testing, we get a more objective evaluation of the employee, and we also are able to gear that testing towards our particular application here, so we know that they're effective in their job. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the cost items relative to the amendments. First and foremost, we are looking at a 3.5% pay increase each year of the 2-year effective period, and that will result in a premium of $6.8 million over our current operating budget. Okay. Other changes include sick leave buyback. We're increasing the amount that we pay employees to sell back sick leave, and traditionally this is a reward for not using the sick leave. So we're looking to encourage more people to save their sick leave up and sell it back at the end of the year, and we think we'll make some efficiency gains in that regard. Of course, we will typically increase the uniform, tool, and shoe allowance as we approach these agreements. In this particular case, it is $10 per year per item, with the exception of tools. The tools going up $20 the first year, $10 the second year. So in total, we are looking at an increase of almost $6.4 million, again, relative to our current operating budget over the 2-year effective period. Wanted to show a little salary comparison just to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. We've listed the other transit agencies within the state, and at the bottom you'll see what the new pay rates are for the operators under the proposed pay increase amendment. And you'll see that we are very competitive with the other agencies across the state. In fact, for bus operators that began their employment with VIA prior to 1990, they are now the highest paid bus operators in the state. Okay, so this evening, again, we're asking for board approval of the proposed amendments. In your packet, there is a detailed listing of the amendments that I just summarized. We feel that these amendments will provide employees with benefits that are considered fair and reasonable, and will also place VIA in a good position with respect to recruiting in our area and in our current economy. And I can ask Dan Rodriguez, president of Local 694 and business agent, if he'd like to come up and join us, but we'll take any questions now that you may have.
Jeff, do you have anything you wish to add to that?
Yeah, what I just wanted to, I really wanted to compliment the staff and the union leadership for working through this agreement, and the union took it to a vote shortly after the, this modification of the working conditions. I need to keep my phraseology correct. In any case, the union took a vote about a month ago. Dan can report the findings of that vote, but and I want to speak specifically to Dan that I really respect that the union is very forward-looking, and that many of the changes here you see in some cases reward the kind of behavior you really want and discourage the kind of behavior you don't want. So you have, on the one hand, you sell your sick leave back at a little better rate. On the other hand, you discourage not coming into work, which are what we all want. And this union really has worked so well with us, and so I want to thank Dan and his folks for that.
You're welcome.
And turn it over to you, Dan.
Well, all I just want to say is that, yes, we have been working real close with Gary and company, trying to come up with this agreement and kind of settle it off. And fortunately, we did come up with this agreement. Of course, some of the language that was outdated was basically the hardest part. Like Gary says, some of the language was has no bearing on what it is now. But we had to go back and tweak it, little by little, but we managed to do it. So appreciate your support.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate the working relationship that we have with the staff and with the union. I think is very important. I think the board will agree that our employees are our face out there in the community, and they're out there seeing our passengers every day 44 million times a year, and we need to make that very doable in terms of giving them support that they need to be able to do the job to make us deliver on our mission effectively. We can't do it without our 1,600 employees, and we want to be sure that we treat them right. And the key here is having that relationship where we can go back and forth, and as was pointed out, make some adjustments in the working conditions that go both ways, but at the same time provide excellent support for our employees. Any other comments or thoughts?
I have some, Mr. Chairman. The way that management is going about the items is they're actually looking at it from a safety aspect. So this, I think, is a very good agreement because, as Gary's saying, looking at a technical basis, you always want to provide a safe work environment, no matter what, because you want that operator or that mechanic to go home at night to his family. So that's paramount number one. And in this agreement, I see that. Coming from a union household myself, sometimes the relationship between union and management is not always, could be strained. Here at VIA, looking at it from a technical aspect also, it's good. It's very good. And that the behavior is what we want to recommend with the employees. Both those behind the scenes in the garage and those on the street, because actually our buses, there's curb appeal. Our buses look good on the street.
Good point.
I want to highlight slide 9, and I guess, Gary, I want you to explain. We're, of the 5 cities that are listed there, we have 2 wage rates, and I wonder if you would speak to that, because if you look at that, that kind of tells maybe a more nuanced story about what our wage rate system is.
Right. Back in 1990, there was an agreement that was approved that included a sliding scale, and that scale extended for a 4-year period. So each year of that period, the starting rate was decreased. And so those employees that were on prior to the implementation of those working conditions were grandfathered from any pay decreases. And so they are the highest paid employees. And so footnote A, those are, as I mentioned, the employees that were currently on board with VIA at the time that those working conditions were approved. And then footnote B, that's everybody that has started work since 1994. That is their starting rate of pay.
And just to give us a sense of the size of those populations, what is the size of the population that would get the 2272?
And I'm going to speak for the maintenance area. I would say 10%.
It's a small number.
Yes.
And what about drivers? But not, it's how much? 20%. I just want to put that out there because I think that although that rate looks obviously technically higher by 30-some cents than some of the other rates, the reality is the great majority of our employees, I think, are going to be getting rates much less than that, or less than that, 2272. And though I think it's a very strong rate, when you maybe average it out, it seems to me mathematically that we're looking at a rate that is somewhere below the top state rate when you average it out across our workforce, which I think is noteworthy, and I think that's a fair characterization, don't you?
On the other hand, we offer longevity pay, which encourages people to stay on and make it a career, which I think has been, a strong desire particularly on part of the union, that these jobs be viewed as career jobs. And so we have maintained this longevity pay differential that you can see. 2 of our peers don't have it at all, and the other 2 have really very small, increases for longevity. And for example, the 2272, that was what people who started before August 1st, 1990. Well, of course, those people are already hired and they're already here 20 years, so they're actually making 2630 for the most part.
Right.
And so again, we reward people for staying on and making it a career and being career employees.
I think we're both saying it different ways, but I think I agree with you. It seems to me that one of the great things about VIA that is lost sometimes even in our own community is how efficient we are. I think that's a message that we're getting out there. I think part of it is that we have people who see themselves as professionals in doing the work that they do for us, and they really invest themselves in the mission of VIA, and it seems somewhat miraculous to me that we're able to do as much as we do with as little as we get, and we win these competitions at the state and national level on 75 cents on the dollar kind of thing, or 50 cents on the dollar. So I just think that there is a picture that I want to have emerge as we talk about these cold hard numbers. And I guess also on the prior slide where we talk about the amount that it affects our budget, I suppose that if we didn't give any raises, it would not affect our budget, but we would not give any raises. So
might affect service on the street.
We wouldn't want to see that happen, but I think
Right.
it's one of the realities of running a quality bus operation, quality transportation operation, and I don't think we should make light of, what it takes to retain such dedicated employees. So I just wanted to clarify those two things for the record.
Catherine, do you want to add something?
Yes, I want to thank Dan and his executive board, who the majority of them are here tonight with us, for your dedication and for delving into what would help your members and the employees here at VIA. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Let me just say again how important this is, and kind of echo what Doug was saying earlier, and that is we really are competitive with other metropolitan transit authorities in the state. Naturally, our cost per operating hour, I forget what that chart shows, is about
25 to 40%.
Yeah, 25 to 40% lower than the other metropolitan transit authorities in the state, despite the fact that we only get half a cent sales tax, and most of those get a full penny. And so I think it does talk about our efficiency and our effectiveness in getting that done. And so clearly an excellent job. The 1.9 or $2 million projected for next year is already programmed into the budget that you present to us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion on the table?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Are there any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Okay, a very important item. That brings us then to item number 9 on our agenda, which is the environmental and sustainability policy. And I believe Gary's doing that one as well.
In the interest of time, I'm going to give an abbreviated presentation, but I'll be able to address any questions that you may have. An environmental sustainability management system is a set of processes and procedures that allow an agency like VIA to control our environmental impacts while at the same time improving our efficiency. Over the last year period, we've been fortunate enough to participate in a program that is sponsored by the FTA, wherein we receive training on implementing the Environmental Sustainability Management System, or ESMS, with the International Standard of Organizational 14,001 standard, if I remember that correctly, as a framework. And the FTA is encouraging transit systems to utilize this particular ISO standard kind of at the request of the president. And so we applied for this particular program, and we were fortunate enough to be selected. Now, we have a pretty robust environmental control system in place now, but we feel that there's some great value in implementing or taking our program to a different level and using the ISO standard as the framework, and it'll help to place us in a better light with regard to FTA grant opportunities, and then also significantly reduce our risk relative to environmental issues. So this evening, we're asking from the board, I should say, approval of a policy that we put together that really kind of meets all the check marks of the ISO 14001 standard. I want to emphasize, however, that we have not made the decision to pursue ISO certification. We simply want to use the standard as a framework, get our system in place, and then step back, take a look, and decide if there is significant enough value in the pursuit of certification to go after it. And so, again, this evening, we are looking for approval of the proposed policy. And again, it's really more of a checkbox in the framework, if you will.
That completes your presentation? Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go for it.
Thanks for the presentation, and I remember we talked about this at the committee level, and you pointed it out, and you made the distinction that I think that we discussed. Under the proposed policy, if you can refresh my memory, are there other MTAs that have similar policies across the state, country?
Yes, sir.
In a small group at this level?
Right, and there are. And what we collected a sample of those that have actually gone to the certification level. Let me just give you a quick, we have Sound Transit in the Seattle area, Salt Lake City, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and then smaller agencies in those bigger metropolitan areas.
And some of the opportunities, and you talked about it, and it's also in your notes, but there's risk mitigation opportunities, grant opportunities, and other positive benefits, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you're planning on reviewing this annually? I mean, you'll bring this back a year from now, and so we're not going forward with the ISO certification yet. This is merely a precursor to that, correct?
Absolutely, and if we decide to recommend, we would certainly bring that to the board and give you exactly why we are recommending.
We would bring a new policy to the board, because it would be a new policy at that point.
And I think that was one of the other distinctions we talked about at the committee level, and I appreciate the clarification. My last question is, in light of the budget, are there any staffing addition requirements because of this policy or any impact?
There are some additional costs that we would incur, and we went back and really kind of based on the discussion we had at the committee level and put a pencil to paper, and we are estimating these costs for implementation only, one time, of almost $45,000, and then an annual cost of roughly $34,000 just to keep the program going. And again, this is without the certification. Now, there is an agency up the road here, Capital Metro in Austin, and they've gone through the same program. They're reporting a $326,000 a year savings because of the implementation of a similar program. We don't know that we would quite get there yet because a lot of the actions that they took, we've already taken. And so we're going to be pursuing any type of savings we can get, but I can't give you a real good feel for that just yet, but we are pretty confident about the costs I just gave you.
I appreciate the feedback. We had a discussion at the committee level on this, and that was one of the things we talked about. And for the one-time cost and the annualized cost, I think it's well worth it to determine what the future could hold, whether it's in the form of grants or just risk mitigation. So I'll be supporting it. Thanks for your work on it. Looking forward to the follow-up and see how it pans out, see if it works well for us. With that, I'll make a motion to approve it if we need an action item on this. I did not read the agenda item. Is that an action item?
It is an action item, yes.
Then I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Additional questions? Mark, did you have a question?
I'll just say again, of course, it all boils down to, especially with the maintenance side of the business, safety. And that's something that needs to be achieved and needs to be a state of mind with every employee. And I think here I see it because I've taken tours of the garage, and let me tell you something, they do work in a safe manner.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the capital program revisions, and I believe Brian's making that presentation.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. This evening, staff is bringing before you some capital program revisions based on some of the recent events, and I'll walk you through these this evening. As you might remember, back in 2009, VIA did a long-range comprehensive transportation plan, and in 2011, that was adopted by the board of directors. This is the map that we show most greatly around the city as we go out and talk about our needs in the community through the year 2035. And you can see here it indicates a number of corridors where there's improvements that could be needed in the high capacity area, along with a multitude of different transit facilities that should also be built to support the growth that is showing up in the region And the MPO continues to show that growth in their 2040 projection that they're doing right now, showing an estimated additional over 1 million people coming to this community. So the needs are great. And back in 2011, we identified those needs to the tune of $3.5 to $4 billion. So VIA then broke it out into some manageable chunks of capital projects. And this is the short-range capital program, or SMART Move program, that we've been moving forward over the last few years. And here are the 6 projects associated with that: the West Side, the Robert Thompson, the 281, the Brooks Transit Center, downtown patron amenities, and the amenities throughout the whole entire system, and the modern streetcar program. So with the reallocation of the dollars associated with the modern streetcar program, staff went back and looked at the long-range comprehensive transportation plan that was looked at back in 2009 through 2011 and continued to identify the unmet needs of the community. So in the light pink there is the Southwest Corridor BRT project that we have been speaking about. We started a study on that approximately 3.5 months ago with some initial results coming out of that as far as capital and the type of project we should invest in that corridor. You can see there are State Route 151 Park and Ride, Alamo Ranch, Sea World, Bandera Road type area, 1604 area, high growth area of the city out there, the need for an additional park and ride out there. And then once again, I-10 outside of 1604, the need for an additional park and ride facility to capture those commuters, to bring them into their work areas and bring them home in the evening. Also, with our fleet replacement and fleet expansion, we do have the need, as we've spoken many times, about additional room at this facility to service those vehicles. So we did look at an additional paratransit facility, moving those paratransit vehicles off this property to a secondary property and continuing to service our existing fleet here and paratransit fleet at an additional location. We also, as we went out and talked to the community through the last couple years, I've heard a lot about the bus stop amenities, give me more shelters, give me protected space, so we wanted to add to that program, and we continue to think that is a need here in this community. Obviously, additional fleet, and you'll hear about the start of that at the end of, towards the end of this meeting. We have a bus fleet replacement program we are beginning to start. Additional transit center parking, adding different amenities and additional parking to our existing transit centers. Some operational improvements at our North Star Transit Center. We cannot make a southbound movement out of that facility up there, so we would maybe look at some ways to improve operational efficiency up there by making a southbound movement out of that. And then several transit-oriented development opportunities, both in the Primo corridor and all throughout our system. Are there opportunities for VIA to invest in itself and the investments we've made in the corridors? So those are some of the ideas that staff came up with as we looked at reallocating the $92 million from TxDOT. So this evening, the recommendation from staff is as follows, is to allocate some funding to the some additional projects, but also some projects that have already been in our capital program. So this is a map of the program projects that we would allocate the $92 million TxDOT money to. You can see the Robert Thompson Transit Center, the West Side Multimodal Center is in that. The Brooks Transit Center is in that set of projects also, but it is included with additional funding to bring it to a $20 million investment versus the $10 million we currently have programmed. And then new facilities out at 151, 1604, and I-10 out north of 1604. And then some additional transit amenities all throughout the whole entire system. So this is the projects that we would bring before you tonight to have a discussion about the reallocation of the $92 million. So with that, this map, along with the description to the right, indicates the total investment in those corridors. So you can see the I-10 park and rides. Most of the park and rides are programmed at $10 million. That includes real estate acquisition and all the costs associated with bringing on a park and ride in those different locations. The 281 park and ride, you might remember the funding gap when we moved straight from phase 1 completely to phase 2. This funding would cover that gap associated with that. Also, the additional $10 million to the Brooks Transit Center for some additional parking that we'll be bringing to the Real Estate Committee tomorrow to have a discussion about opportunities out there after some feedback we received from Brooks Development Authority. Westside Multimodal Center remains at $25 million, and that project is continuing to move forward. We'll have a groundbreaking later this week associated with that. Robert Thompson Transit Center maintains the RFP and the nature of that project to be in a joint development public-private partnership. And then the Southwest Corridor Bus Rapid Transit right now budgeted at $66.1 million. I will say that that is a budget number, as VIA has always implemented all of its capital projects in the most cost-effective manner possible. If that project goes down as we continue to develop that program, we'll definitely bring that before you. But right now, based on the corridor that we have and some of the amenities we're looking at putting out there, just a rough budget estimate at this time is about $66 million. And that's associated with traffic signal upgrades, some station upgrades, maybe some exclusive lanes in some of the area. We just haven't completely defined that project yet, other than the budgetary number of about $66 million. And the bus stop amenities at $12 million. So this is just a table of those same exact projects. The total is $173.3 million. And tonight, staff is asking for the recommendation to approve the reallocation of the $92 million into these program of projects, which are both some new projects and a reaffirmation of some existing projects that are currently in the capital program. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but our next move is to work with TxDOT on the agreement, work in partnership with the Regional Mobility or the Regional Mobility Plan and the update of the long-range plan with our partners, including the city and the MPO, and then work with the MPO on their update and as we move forward with our long-range plan update. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
If you don't mind, going back to slide number 7, can you, I know in prior information that you put together, including what we sent to TxDOT, included the breakdown in that cost, that you got the total project cost there for each of those projects. What portion would that be TxDOT money, and what portion of those would be the other sources?
See, I have the breakdown on a different project. I think I might have that here. I think on West Side Multimodal Center, about 2.4 million of that is TxDOT funding. The Robert Thompson Transit Center, about 5.1 million of the 10.7 is TxDOT funding. US 281 is 2.6 million. The Brooks Transit Center is the additional $10 million we spoke about. Patron amenities, 5.2. IH-10 and 151 Park and Ride, 8 million. And the Southwest BRT corridor at 50.7.
And when you talk about bus stop amenities, what does that mean? Flowers, or what are we talking about?
No, that means that either locations that currently have shelters that need new shelters, or they currently do not have shelters where we would put up shelters, along with accessibility pads and upgrades to connectivity to those shelters in those locations. So
And we
providing,
already have a program in the budget to do 600 of those, right?
we do.
And this would add how many?
It would probably add, I'm guessing, maybe another 300 to 400 to that program.
400?
Yeah,
So a 66% increase?
at least 66,
number
maybe
of
100% increase. Yes,
I think that what's important here is how we communicate this.
that's correct.
In terms of to the general public, because I do think it's a great opportunity. All these things were part of our master plan.
They are.
These are not pulled off the shelf. These are all been part of a long-term planning process. What we're doing is reprioritizing the projects that are already in there. And we're taking the 92 million, which is authorized by TxDOT to be spent on these other types of projects related to mass transit, whether it be park and ride, or whether it be buses, or whether it be the multimodal centers or whatever. Give us the opportunity to invest in that, and that's exactly what we're doing here, and reprioritizing some of those additional projects. And so the 92 million would be contributed to that $173 million total cost.
That is correct, sir.
Any additional comments or questions? Steve?
Just to echo that, Chairman, I'm having a little difficulty, and maybe we're just playing word games a little bit, but I'm having a little difficulty with reallocation, because I don't see it as a reallocation, because we're staying consistent with what has been in the long-range plan all along. Every one of the listed items have been in the long-range plan, the 2035 plan from day one. The minute order from TxDOT, as I understand and recall, would include each of these items as part of that 92 million if we so chose to spend it that way.
That's correct.
And it seems like that's just what we're continuing to do, is pursuit of the master long-range plan.
I think that's entirely accurate. And this is probably more of a reprogramming to some degree, because within the current agreement, some of these projects are listed in that agreement, and some of them had not moved into that agreement yet. They're all consistent with the kinds of improvements that that agreement was engendered to support. And in fact, the Commission's action and our board's action both reflect those projects with an attachment that lists at the time the projects that were in place and the funding, but had a provision to update that attachment. And so this is be kind of a reprogramming, advancing the projects.
Right. Doug, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was away during the sort of the pivotal decision-making that was happening in this community regarding the new four-letter word streetcar. And so that was painful to watch from a distance, let alone, I'm sure, for all of us who were here, because I know that I believe in the concept of streetcar, but more importantly, I believe in the concept of a system that addresses a multitude of needs in a variety of ways that makes sense for the different parts of our community. That list shows an example of what those priorities are and how they're all different, and we have to tailor them to the needs that we are facing. But I guess I just wanted to put out there that, you know, my understanding from the city and the county representatives was that this streetcar issue was to be put on pause until this community could perhaps circle around the table and do other planning that it felt appropriate. And I hope that that's clear to all of us, that, you know, that is something that was part of a long-range plan, that's something that, although some would like to scuttle it altogether, I think we need to respect the fact that the message we got was, let's put that on pause and just consider it through a new process. So as we do these things, I think this reflects that we have a number of priorities, and you know, streetcar was just one issue, and I think if the community were to see the list that follows this list that we're funding, that would be an eye-opener as well, because, you know, we do have to come to terms with the fact that we have to be sensible about our transportation strategy as a community, as a region, and not let any one issue distract us from that. And then at some point, whenever we do get around the table and do the planning stuff, I think that the streetcar discussion needs to be put there for everyone to consider its place among the whole system. So I just wanted to say that word and remind us that, you know, we have an obligation to not do more than what we've been asked to do by those appointing authorities. And lastly, I would say, to the extent that we as an agency, I mean, I think personally we need to be at the forefront of helping this discussion on planning take place. I know that we've been invited to sit at the table, but I think that we have a lot of work that we can share with these folks, with the city, the county, the suburban cities. Anyone in the community who wishes to learn more about the planning that we've done, we should be encouraging our staff and all of us to carry that communication forward, because I think, frankly, we're the ones that have spent the most time talking and thinking about this, and I think that that's what our representatives would want us to do. So, though we're focused on this is good. Let us not forget the other stuff that we also have to champion, including streetcar.
Any other comments or thoughts? Let me just add that a lot of this just makes sense. You know, the investment in the multimodal centers on the west side and the Robert Thompson Center makes sense, because that's treating our core riders with respect. 40% of our riders today only go downtown to transfer. And so instead of having to stand on the corner in the heat and the cold, in the rain, if it ever rains again, they now go to a multimodal center in a covered area that's safe and secure, be able to go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee, drink some water, and be treated with respect. And these are our core riders. 40% of our 44 million passenger trips a year that we have. And so that makes sense. The park and ride, we're going to continue to grow. And this just gives choices. And so if you want to live further out, you can live out there, but you're going to have a choice. You can drive on the freeway and get caught in congestion, or you can go to a park and ride and hop on an express bus and maybe get downtown quicker. But the choice is up to you. The Brooks Transit Center, that whole Southside development, that connection to the Eagle Ford shale activity that's occurring and all the growth that's going to be generated to the south of our community, it makes sense now to plan for that and to accommodate that. That's going to continue to grow in the future. And as we look at that as well, for example, the Southwest Corridor, build on the success of Primo. Right now, Primo, that we have, the routes that we have from the medical center and from UTSA main campus and from Leon Valley to downtown, is our second highest volume of passengers, no, third highest volume of passengers in our system. And the route that we're talking about here in the Southwest Corridor includes the Sarzamora route, which is the second highest volume of passengers, 1.8 million passengers a year on that Sarzamora route that goes from the A&M Southside campus all the way up Sarzamora, Fredericksburg Road, and to the medical center. The Southwest Corridor will link up Brooks City Base, A&M campus, the Toyota project to the south, up Sarzamora, over by Port San Antonio, on the west side along General McMullen by Las Palmas, up to Bandera Road, out Bandera, nipping St. Mary's University to Callahan, and out to the medical center. And we'll provide quicker service for those folks, again, who deserve that type of service improvements. And the bus shelters, the amenities that we're talking about here. In driving around town, I've now gotten to the habit of counting shelters, and we need a lot of them. We have a lot of bus stops where we don't even have a bench for folks to sit on. And you have our riders are standing out there, senior citizens, children. There was a lady out over by our Ellis Alley Transit Center in a wheelchair with an umbrella in the sun waiting for the bus this afternoon. And we need to provide those types of shelters to treat them with respect. And that's going to be the kind of work that's going to invite our ridership to continue to ride us, to support us, and to expand that in the future. At the same time, maintain that multimodal aspect we're talking about, whether it be BRT, bus rapid transit, and connected with buses. In the future, the potential for rail, whether it be in streetcar or light rail, which is also part of that master plan. Light rail connections up the I-10 corridor and the I-35 corridor, and the long range, the connection with Austin and intercity rail with the Lone Star Rail District. That'll all end up right there at the West Side Multimodal. And so all of that just kind of makes sense. It's cheaper to do it now and plan for it now and do it now than to wait and come back and redo it later on. The cost of the interchange at 281 and 410, I believe, was I'm looking for Clay, there he is, $270 million, including the cost of right-of-way. And the interchange at 281 and 1604, $220 million just for that interchange. And so if we're going to be making those kinds of investments to catch up and take care of bad planning in the past, then we need to be making these investments now where they're cost effective and plan for that growth in the future and complement other things that are going on in the community. And the master planning process is critical. I think it's important to recognize that transportation does not stop at city limits lines. Our service area is broader. We serve the entire county and connect to other parts with the MPO now, covers Guadalupe County and Comal County and portions of Kendall County. And so as we continue to grow, we have to recognize that transportation issues don't stop at border lines of different political jurisdictions, and they go beyond that. And so we need to have folks at the table who represent the county, who represent the city, who represent suburban cities as well. And I think that we bring that's built into our configuration, and we bring that perspective to the table. So I'm fully supportive of this. Do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay. Just one.
We voted nay.
Yeah, I think streetcars should still be on there.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Did
you.
you want to make that a more formal statement?
Just did.
You're officially voting no because you thought streetcars need to be in there.
Yeah, that it should have been still on there.
Okay. Okay, motion carries.
Thank
By a majority vote with one opposed, based upon the principle of maintaining the streetcar as part of the project. Thank you very much, Brian. Then brings us to item 11, which is the MPO Transportation Alternatives Program, and I believe Clay's making that presentation. There he is.
The MyLink Pedestrian Transportation Plan is we've entitled this, and we're going to look at the plan and how it's what its purpose is and the coordination that we've had with the City of San Antonio, with TxDOT, and then ultimately a recommendation on a transportation alternatives program, a funding request that came from the MPO. 92% of all the riders get to the bus by walking. I was amazed at that high percentage. 70% of the riders live within 2 blocks of the stop, and 76% of the riders make a transfer. This is a mobility access curve. Actually, we see it in highways. When you look at high mobility, you're really looking at low access. But when you look at high access, you have low mobility. What we've seen on many of the roadway corridors, at one time they had the high mobility and very little access. But over time, because of with transit, needs that are there for people to walk to bus stops, what we've seen is the access on what used to be high mobility roadways really is moving down to where there's a lot of access in there, and I think that will speak to the next slide that we have here. And just, well, let me talk about this first. When we see the need at many of our bus stops, much like this particular one on Fredericksburg Road, we have a bus stop, but the connecting links to the development, to an intersection where people are going, oftentimes aren't there. And so as you can see here, usually you can tell the need by looking at the path, and you can see the path that goes to the site. You can also see it then go up to the adjacent development where people are going. Actually, in this particular case, this apartment complex in the private property, you can see a sidewalk that goes kind of from left to right there. Okay. Over 1,600 pedestrian accidents occurred in Bexar County that were reported in 2010 and 2012. And I think some of that has to do with one of the previous slides when we talked about access increasing on high mobility corridors and the need to make sure those that are using transit are able to go to their destinations and to the site in a safe manner. 60% of the service operates without sidewalks or impassable sidewalks, like we may have seen on the previous slide. Okay. Well, in MyLink, this coordinated pedestrian plan, again, we've been working with the City of San Antonio and TxDOT, and do not want this plan to just be a one-time plan and where we look at hot spots and solve issues one time, but a continuous rolling 3 to 4 year plan where we're continually looking at the needs that are there, trying to find funding for those projects, and just continually moving forward with the plan, kind of in a rolling plan. Well, you do that when you look at the needs. City of San Antonio has needs, VIA Metropolitan Transit has needs, TxDOT has needs. Everybody has their needs, but if we can focus our attention on these pedestrian links, when we're looking at safety, and we've been listening to a lot of discussion today, safety is the highest. I know it, coming from TxDOT, having worked there 35 years, safety is the top. And I know it's here at VIA. It is the most important to your customers, it's most important to your employees. And then is also a component with that is the ADA compliance, making sure that those that are handicapped, those that need other assistance, can actually get to the sites safely and in an expeditious manner with improved infrastructure. And so that was our goal as we looked at trying to bring this partnership together, focusing on those things that are common with each one of us. So again, we're looking at a 3 to 4 year continuous plan, coordinating, looking at those high priority via stop areas where we've got high volume of people boarding, looking at those areas where there have been known ADA complaints. Some of them just resonate here with VIA, some resonate with the city. Some have actually been elevated to the Department of Justice, and they come back through Federal Highway and asking TxDOT to work with the agencies to resolve those issues. So looking at the high usage, the high ADA complaints, looking at these safety concerns, and trying to move forward with a plan. Again, we're going to define the priorities and look at opportunities to advance these projects, not just have them in a plan. Look at maintenance programs like the city has, look at partnerships with TxDOT, and even the MPO as we have right now with the funding program call. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, the TAP program, the Transportation Alternative Program, was formerly called the Enhancement Program through the Federal Highway Administration. It's actually administered through TxDOT. Previously, these allocations of funds were submitted to the MPO, but then selected on a statewide basis by the TxDOT administration in Austin. This particular year, this two-year time frame from 2015 to 2016, the Texas Transportation Commission allocated the funds to the MPOs to make the selection rather than it being selected on a statewide basis. And so the program call was $11.5 million, and the MPO has submitted that, and actually the September 2nd is the deadline to submit our projects. They're asking for $1 million. This was locally. $1 million is a minimum, because if you turn in too small a project, it's hard to implement because of the costs. And there's also a 20% local match to the 80% federal funds. The 11.5 is the 100% allocation. The goal of the program is to look at pedestrian and bicycle facilities. There's other things that could be used for, and generally it's other than highways, but the MPO asked that we focus the attention on pedestrian facilities and bicycle facilities. Look at those that can provide safe routes really for your non-drivers, and provide a well-connected sidewalk system, pedestrian facilities to improve safety, your patron experience and operations for ADA compliance. And so with that, and working with the city of San Antonio, they were looking at a coordinated plan. It's already in their infrastructure maintenance program, and so we've been talking with them of how they could use that program to advance the MyLinks, how they could connect to some of the shelters and make sure that we have that connection for the pedestrians, for the ADA. They've been looking at some that are in the medical center. The Medical Center Foundation has actually provided some additional match money for the city. And also we've been working on the new 515 route on Walter Street that we've implemented. Right now, we're not sure exactly if they've included the 515 in their plan, and because we did want to support that, and we'll know as they make their formal submission to the MPO, and we'll be talking with our MPO representatives as we move forward as they discuss those more at the MPO. The other partner was TxDOT, and so we looked at the state facilities, those that have a number. They also have a city name, like Loop 345. Clay knows that as a state route. It's also known as Fredericksburg Road. And there's many of those around the city. The map that you see in front of you is about 300 different sites throughout the state roadway system. And in partnering with TxDOT, they also have an interest to see these areas improved, the access and also the ADA areas improved. And they agreed that if that any funding that VIA would get through the MPO, that they would actually do the design and the construction management at their cost, and not, which to us it's over a 20% savings for VIA. Otherwise, that would come out of our operations to do that. And so we felt that was a good deal. And so there would be a 20% match on the VIA side, and we're looking at a $400,000 match is what we're looking at, and asking for a $2 million application. But the $2 million would not cover all 300 locations, and so we prioritized those, and we looked at 6 different areas, or 6 different areas in town. One of them on Fredericksburg Road, another one on Bandera Road, on Roosevelt, Loop 410 on the west side, Loop 13 or Southeast Military on the southeast side, and also on US 281 around the Bitters Road area. These themselves were over 100 locations, and as we began to look more and more at the cost of these locations, we prioritized those down a little bit more to the $2 million application request that we wanted to make. And there were 55 locations that came in the US 281 corridor, the Fredericksburg Road corridor through Balcones Heights and City of San Antonio, and also the Roosevelt corridor. There were 55 sites that would make up that $2 million. These we chose because they had the highest ridership of the group. They also had the ADA needs, and there were complaints in these areas. And so we would continue to move forward with the other areas as monies become available. But these were the ones that we wanted to recommend and prioritize to move forward to the MPO. There's a couple corridors I did want to point out along, it's kind of gray on the map. It follows the Broadway, Austin Highway, Parambital corridor, and also parallels Interstate 35, and it's FM 78 that goes on up through Kirby and on up into Converse. Those we're looking at some other funding opportunities there to make some improvements there, and we'll be bringing that back to you at another board meeting. But so we did have a lot of geographic distribution as we looked at that. So our recommendation is that we're asking, we have a resolution in your package to support the submission of a $2 million application to the MPO. 1.6 million of that is the federal funds, and 400,000 would be the 20% match by VIA, and then the TxDOT has agreed to do the design and construction management of those facilities, kind of in cooperation with us. And so that's our staff's recommendation to the board, and would answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for that presentation, Clay. Any questions?
I just have a question regarding sort of the determination of priorities. Can you explain how that's done? I assume it's done some objective way, and it's not just because a particular person likes a particular part of town or what have you.
Correct. We looked at the ADA needs that were there, and also high ridership. Those two components looked at these areas. Within those clusters, and can you go back to that? Yeah, within some of those clusters, there may have been a site that may have been low ridership, but it was in that group, and when you begin to look at construction costs, if you spread them out too much and kind of a shotgun type of approach, you'd be spending money for the contractor to drive from one site to the other. So that's why we kind of chose the clusters that had the highest ridership as a group and had also the ADA needs in there.
Speaking of, as you mentioned that, the gray lines which were on Austin Highway, Perrin Vital, or I-35, you say you're looking for these sources of funding. Is there an estimated sense of when that might come about?
I think we're looking at maybe later this month or next month, we'll be coming to the board with those projects.
I think we'll be bringing it to the board with the capital program, actually, so it'll be later this month.
Okay.
And
As
this-
part of the budget process.
Yes, sir.
And this is all in addition to the capital funding we just saw in the
Yes,
last-
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, it
Yes, sir.
is.
That's the kind of as Paul Harvey, that's the
It's
next
the rest of the
story.
story.
That's the rest of the story.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's good, and it's good.
And is the 2 million project max, does that include the match?
Yes, sir. The 2 million would be the 100%. What's not shown in the 2 million is the soft costs that TxDOT is providing, and so that's probably another $400,000 to $500,000. But working with TxDOT and Mario Jorge, the district engineer, he's recognized the importance to this and says he wants to partner on it. And I know Darcy Chappelle is here representing Mario, and will be taking back that message. And they're wanting to partner because they want to see these pedestrian amenities, the safety improvements there, and are willing to reach out and work with us in that regard.
And then when you talked, you mentioned Kirby and Converse. This would fit within the $2 million that was dedicated to the suburban cities for this type of amenity, wouldn't it not? So could not Kirby and Converse apply their portion of these funds to this type of project?
Well, I think this all kind of works as a plus.
Exactly.
So I think there's some more things, because what's not shown here is right now TxDOT is working with the city of Converse on FM 16 right in front of City Hall, and there's 8 existing bus stops there today, and they're all in unimproved shoulders and ditches, and the improvements that Converse has asked the city, TxDOT to do there will actually improve the roadway and improve all the continuous sidewalks and improve those stops that are there. So outside of the 2 million previously, outside of this 2 million, those improvements are taking place already.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us then to the next item, item number 12, which is the fleet replacement program, and Gary's back up for that one.
Sorry about that. This item is for board information only. We're not requesting any action this evening. Want to start out with some facts about our fleet. We have 463 buses, and we're only talking about fixed route buses with this particular program. The average age of our bus is 11 years, and the average amount of miles that each bus has been driven, 569. When you look at FTA minimum life, we receive 80% of the funding necessary to purchase a bus from the FTA, and along with that, there's a minimum life associated with that particular purchase, and that minimum is 12 years or 500,000 miles, whatever comes first. So our average bus is already beyond minimum useful life with respect to the FTA. Of our 463 buses, 397 are 40-foot buses. Those are our workhorse buses that can be used throughout the service area. We have 30 express buses, and of course 19 of the Primos and 3 of the all-electric buses that operate downtown and 14 of the old rubber tire trolleys. Here's a little more detail on the breakdown of our fleet. And if you start off with the top, 4 rows, you'll see that more than 73% of our fleet is beyond minimum useful life, again, with respect to the FTA standards. And as we move down into the chart, we start covering our newer vehicles. Most of our vehicles operate on diesel. However, we do have, I believe at this point, I can say we have the most diverse transit fleet in the country, where we operate propane, CNG, hybrid electric, all electric, and our vans operate on propane and gasoline ethanol mixture as well. The purchase schedule that we're laying out now is listed in this particular chart, and we're covering 2016 through 2025. And we regularly maintain a fleet replacement schedule and update it every year to reflect the changes to the capital plan. Now, one of the things we are considering here, you'll see on the 4th row down on the top chart, there is a 15 bus purchase scheduled for 2019. Those are 60-foot buses. We are exploring the option of pushing that purchase ahead and perhaps getting it accomplished in 2015. We've identified some potential in writing the contract of another transit agency, and we're exploring that now so that we can have or make an immediate impact with our fleet in the next fiscal year. You see that the program in total is $259 million, and it'll take our fleet from a total of 478 vehicles in 2016 to 521 vehicles in 2025. One of the most important cost drivers when we start considering buses are fuel costs. And I've kind of laid them out here to give you an idea and to help support a recommendation that we're making to pursue CNG as the fuel of choice for the upcoming bus purchases. I'll give an example. Up in propane at the top, you see the fuel costs that we incurred back in August, and these are non-hedged fuel costs. These are actual costs. We paid $1.18 a gallon, and there are no road taxes associated with propane other than an annual sticker that we place on the vehicle. But one of the things we've been taking advantage of is a 50-cent per gallon rebate from the Internal Revenue Service. So that takes our cost per mile for operating the rubber-tired streetcars downtown from 76 cents a mile to 45 cents a mile. So similarly, if you go down to compressed natural gas, you can see that we are currently, or on August 5th anyway, we paid 17 cents a mile to operate a CNG bus, and this includes our Primo buses. And then you compare that to a 40-foot diesel bus in the second row at 87 cents a mile. So there's a significant savings to be achieved with operating on compressed natural gas. Another point that we'd like to highlight as well is that we source all of our natural gas through city public service. And so in purchasing our fuel from a local entity, we're keeping those funds, those operational funds, local, and they come back to us in the form of sales tax. Now, we have purchased diesel fuel from local suppliers in the past, but it really depends on the contract and the term. But we've heard from other transit agencies in the state, and including the General Land Office, who also markets natural gas, that CPS by far is offering the best deal to be had on the natural gas that we're using to power our vehicles. I want to talk a little bit about the impact of those fuel costs on our overall budget. We present it in terms of cost per mile, but you really don't get the picture until you look at the overall budget. And this is what we had proposed, and it's changed a little bit since we originally proposed it in our budget, but we're up to $18.7 million just for diesel alone. You take that down and you look at natural gas, you'll see that without the rebate, we plan on spending $426,000. With that rebate, it falls to $178,000. So again, diesel cost is a huge cost, or fuel cost rather, a huge driver in terms of our operating costs, and we see some significant savings available with operating on natural gas.
Question. Earlier, we heard from some business representatives about the trolleys, but we have only a limited number of trolleys, and they're reaching their end of life.
Right.
We're not planning on replacing those, are we?
Well, the unfortunate thing with that particular bus model is that it's no longer manufactured. It's been dropped completely. There are some alternatives, but I do not believe that they're tested to the same life that the trolleys that we operate are. So they're a little lighter duty.
And the streetcar would have stopped very close to the Tobin Center?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Got it. All right.
Okay, in this particular chart, we're making a comparison of diesel fuel costs versus natural gas over the bus purchase schedule. And what you'll see at the bottom in terms of savings is we're looking at 82 buses are in that 2016 year column. We're looking at purchasing 82 buses. If we were to operate them on diesel, we'd be paying almost $3.7 million for fuel. On compressed natural gas, $1.3 million. So there's a significant savings of $2.3 million there, and you can extend that throughout that particular table and see that with the purchase of these 475 buses powered by natural gas, we will save more than $95 million in the period extending from 2016 through 2025. So we view this as extremely significant, and again, this is why we're recommending that we move to natural gas. Okay, now there are some cons associated with natural gas fuel. First off, we were going to have to make a $10 million investment in our infrastructure to provide the compressor station necessary to fuel our fleet at this facility. We currently have natural gas fueling skids, but the capacity is not there to handle the entire fleet. We're pretty much strapped out at this point with the 23 buses that we operate now. Another con is that there are no backup stations for the entire fleet. We will keep those skids, and so say for any particular reason our station went down, we could utilize those skids to at least get service up and get service out on our heaviest routes, while whatever repairs are necessary with the compressor station. I will tell you that in our initial specifications for that $10 million compressor station, we're looking at complete redundancy. In other words, we can operate the entire fleet on half of that station. That will allow us to maintain those compressors and not lose any capacity at any time, and we will have complete backup electricity to operate those stations as well. So we think we're pretty well covered, but we just wanted to mention that there's a little difference with our diesel fleet. If we were to ever lose our service station capabilities, we can call tankers in and fuel directly out of the truck if we had to, or at some remote location. We just don't have that opportunity going to natural gas. There's a little increase in safety risk for technicians. We've acknowledged that, and we've been training our techs for the last 2 years. In the last 8 months, we've been sending our facility maintenance people to the compressor manufacturing site in Ohio so that they become more familiar with maintaining the station. So we've been looking at this for a while, planning on it. and trying to get our folks up to speed on the differences in operating with the higher pressure fuel. On the pro side, as I mentioned earlier, locally sourced fuel is of great importance to us. A much quieter bus operation compared to diesel. You know, we regularly hear complaints about buses operating downtown. A lot of that is relative to the noise, and the CNG buses operate much quieter than a conventional diesel. And then the CNG is also recognized as a green alternative to diesel. So again, what we're recommending is that we move to, at least with this purchase program, to a CNG fleet. Okay, and there are a number of styling and feature options, and I'll move through this quickly, but I think I can summarize it at this point, is that we have the Primo buses, we have the Express buses, and we really went all out in the styling with those particular buses, and we paid a pretty significant premium. What we're looking at here, with the exception of the 60-foot buses, is to replace our workhorse fleet. And so any additional item we add onto a bus, there is a long-term maintenance cost associated with that. So we want to continue to operate as efficiently as possible, but at the same time, make people feel that they're getting an upgrade to what they currently ride around town in. And so with that being said, I'll just kind of go through this quickly and show you. These are the 3 buses that are currently available to us. These are the 3 manufacturers that are compliant with the Buy America standards that we have to observe with the federal funding. And so there are 2 Canadian firms and 1 that is headquartered out in California. And then this is advanced styling bus. If this is affordable, this is something we may pursue. But again, we have to look at the long-term operating costs. As I mentioned, even at just 1 decal, you'd be surprised at the cost of having to change it every year. Over the life of 15 years, it all adds up. Bus styling, we're going to be looking and talking to our customers, our operators, mechanics, trying to arrive at a styling feature that best fits our objectives. Seats, our express buses have what we call over-the-road type seating in them, very plush, but there are some drawbacks with those seats in that it's harder to get in and out of them. In addition to that, we can't put as many seats on a bus because they occupy more space. So there are some trade-offs there. We'd like to get some seats that have padding, but at the same time provide us with the greatest amount of seating possible on the particular bus and with the greatest amount of comfort for our passengers. As I mentioned, with seating, there comes a trade-off with standing room, and we want people to be able to get on and off the bus as quickly as possible so that we can minimize our dwell at each stop, and that improves our scheduling and allows us to get folks from point A to point B much quicker. Wheelchair accessibility. At the bottom right, you'll see what we call the backboard and arm. This is a feature that we worked with manufacturers to develop for our Primo buses, and this has gone over very well with the disabled community. This particular feature allows a disabled patron to come onto the bus and situate themselves without the assistance of the operator. And many people have voiced an appreciation for that independence, and so we're going to continue to try to utilize this where possible. So again, kind of summarizing up, when we start looking at styling and features, there increased purchase cost, increased maintenance cost. On the pro side, they're certainly more attractive, but again, these are going to be our workhorses. That this will be where all the costs are in maintaining the fleet. So we're looking to get conventionally styled buses with enough add-ons so that people recognize they're getting something out of this particular program. Next steps, continued outreach. We continue to work with the transportation folks and trying to make the operators happy. We're looking each fleet procurement, we try to do a little something different for the operators. Last purchase period, we went to the all air ride, air suspension seats. This time around, we'd like to look at getting the adjustable pedals. And that way, some of these buses operate 21 hours a day. Of course, it's not the same operator, but just sitting in the seat for 8-10 hours is rough. We acknowledge that, and we want to try to make it as comfortable as possible. And again, try to enhance our ability to attract all types of folks to come in as operators. We're going to continue to reach out to our maintenance people, customers, and we've just about got we have all the technical stuff as far as axles, transmissions, and things kind of set up, but we need to do a little fine tuning to make sure we're addressing everyone's needs. We're going to be issuing the RFP very soon, and before that, we'll be issuing a solicitation for design build services for the CNG station so that we'll be ready for the fleet when it arrives. Now, we will be coming back. This is, again, for information only. When we get to contract point, we're going to be coming back and to the board for approval and going into a little more specifics on exactly what it is we'll be proposing as a replacement vehicle.
Thank you, Gary, for that presentation. Are there any questions?
I just have a couple of questions real quick. Operationally, we use mostly the Gillick system, yes, right now?
No, we're half North American Bus Industries, or NABI, and half New Flyer. But New Flyer just bought out NABI.
Correct.
So I guess we're all New Flyer.
Correct.
For the most part.
So the sourcing of the parts have been an issue in the past, or no?
It really depends on the bus model. But here of late, a lot of our buses we've had so long, we've found alternative suppliers, that sort of thing. So we haven't had much of an issue. Where we do have an occasional problem is with the rubber-tired streetcars because they're just not manufactured anymore.
Correct. One more thing. I know that you didn't bring this up, but I've seen them in action downtown. You have some fleet that you have, I guess, refurbished.
Yes.
Over time, and I think that you've done a very good job with them. Those are the silver and red buses, if I'm not mistaken, most of them?
Yes, the silver buses with the wave, those
Yes, that's
are 1999 and 2001 year model buses, and we were fortunate enough to receive a discretionary grant from the FTA some years back under the State of Good Repair program, and we were able to go in and refurbish those things.
I know that's not an easy job, but those buses actually do sound very quiet, and they're very clean when you see them. When I walk across the Bill Millers, I know that I'm not going to get a whole bunch of smog or such, but I think that you did a really good job on your refurbishment program. That's something that we do at our company ourselves, and I know that's not an easy thing to do.
Thanks. We've got some good people.
Gary, on slide 3, you dealing with the age or the use of our bus fleet. Am I correct in saying, in looking at the first 4 categories and saying that adds up to about 73% of our total fleet?
Yes, sir.
So 73% of our total fleet is beyond the minimum useful life. So, I mean, that to me it seems troubling. Yeah, right. I mean, I know it's you're doing some beautiful jobs with what we have, but that's alarming to see that that we have such a large percentage of our fleet that used.
Well, traditionally, we have kept buses for 15 to 20 years. And then that's just kind of been the history of VIA. And
is that typical? Not just for VIA, I'm saying compared to other bus operations.
You know, it's really typical of the agencies that are cash-strapped, is what you'll find.
Don't be so diplomatic. There are others who can get newer vehicles, to get the new Oldsmobile, or whatever it is, and we're stuck with a DeSoto. So, I never have seen a DeSoto, so I don't know what those are, but I used to hear that all the time. So, I mean, I think that's alarming, and I think that that's, again, another indicator of how we, get by with what we've got, but we're not, operating at the front end or cutting edge of transportation technology. We are making do with what we have.
Well, one of the things that, and you're exactly right, when you operate, especially fleets with one particular bus model or two particular models and operate them for a long period of time, what we've seen is that the staff can fall behind on technology because you get used to maintaining a vehicle that's 10, 12 years old, and meanwhile there's been 3 or 4 iterations of improvements in that period. And so what we've done to kind of address that are projects like go after those electric buses, the CNG buses that we received with stimulus grant, hybrid buses. So we didn't bring them in big numbers because we couldn't afford them, but what it did do is expose our folks to this technology, newer technology, and then at the same time allow us to evaluate the new technology and help us to make a decision on how we move forward with this big purchase.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman, that's on my mind. Of course, when you get the CNG station up, the personnel is going to be trained and certified on its use. This is going to be a core group of folks, or everyone in the garage is going to know how to fuel?
When it comes to fueling, we train all of our attendants
Okay.
To fuel. Now, what we'll typically do is try to keep the same people on it,
Right.
so that there's some familiarity. But we do refreshers every so often, and we do that really with all the vehicles when it comes to servicing. Now, when it comes to the actual technicians or mechanics, you're absolutely correct. We will limit access,
Correct.
especially to those items that are viewed as safety sensitive, such as a high voltage on the hybrid or the high pressure on the natural gas.
Other questions? I had a question, Gary. On slide 2, you talked about the minimum useful life of 12 years.
Yes, sir.
And 500,000 miles. But that's the FTA determines that, not the manufacturers.
Right, and then the manufacturers must test to that level.
And that's the minimum life. What's the maximum useful life?
Maximum is up to the agency. There's no maximum,
Well, we
but
can see from our track record it's around 776,000 miles at least.
those buses will have more than 800,000 miles by the time they get replaced.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say that.
The FTA definition
Like my
says-
53 Chevy. It's
The FTA defines those standards as when a vehicle reaches one or the other,
Right.
the FTA considers that vehicle, that they got their return for their investment.
Right.
And will allow you to replace that vehicle and not have to reimburse the FTA any portion. That's
Right.
essentially why they set that standard.
okay.
And then the FTA also requires testing to, buses must go through what we call Altoona testing, and they try to simulate 12 years or 500,000 miles of service in I believe it's a 3-week period over a test track. And so in order to purchase a bus, it must have gone through that testing.
And when you were talking about the styling and feature options and the seats and some of the other features, and you mentioned one of the cons was the additional cost.
Right.
If we're talking about those 482, 478 million buses, give us a feel for what's the marginal cost involved with that, or the range in terms of the change of the cost?
I think a good example would be our express buses. You see those, they're the hybrid buses that travel through the park and rides. Those are hybrid electric buses, and they came in at a cost of $594,000. We have budgeted $500,000 for these replacement buses, but we think with the numbers that we're talking about that we're probably going to get a little closer to maybe 430 or 450. And so the extra bells and whistles, and of course we only bought 30 of them, but for hybrid technology premium, you're looking at $150,000. The flaring on top of that bus, the solid windows on the side adds probably another $70,000. And it really depends on the number of vehicles you're buying, but the
That will all be
premiums
part
are
of the analysis
significant.
that you bring back to us next.
Yes, sir.
Next presentation. Okay. That brings us into the next item on our agenda, which is our legal briefing. And the time is now 7:38 o'clock p.m., and the Via Metropolitan Transit Board of Trustees will officially go into a closed executive session. The items we will discuss during this executive session are as follows. Item 13, entitled Legal Briefing. 13A, Via City of San Antonio Agreement regarding streetcar portion of Via's Start Move program. 13B, Via ATD Authority to develop, operate, and maintain a transit authority system, Chapter 451, Texas Transportation Code, local ordinances, and/or other regulatory provisions. Item 13C, Bear County, Texas Department of Transportation funding agreements for Via's multimodal projects. And item 13D, Downtown Service and Parking Initiatives, Tobin Garage Parking Agreement, which are executive session items pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, entitled Consultation with Attorney. All persons who are authorized to attend the executive session, please proceed to the small conference room. It is now 8:47 p.m. We are officially coming out of closed executive session regarding agenda items 13A, 13B, 13C, and 13D. No deliberations, public policy, or vote taking occurred during the executive session. And I believe that was the last item on our agenda.
Yes, please to adjourn.
Hearing no objection, I will adjourn the meeting. We're adjourned.